Welcome back to the season finale of DuPont Presents The Power of Shunya, Quest for Zero. Nearly 16 million people will be born this year. As our life expectancy and overall population continues to grow, by the year 2030, India will overtake China as the world's most populous country. I come back to education because I think that that is the basic plank that will determine India's future. In 2014, bear with me as I go through these statistics, India's expenditure on education as a percentage of total government expenditure was quite low, 11.3%. So that's really behind the curve of countries like Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, South Africa, and Thailand. Ajay Sood, what must India do to reprioritize education spending, and how do we work together, maybe public and private, to make this budget mean more?
Absolutely. I think we cannot do just based on the government resources and expect that everything will be solved. That's just not possible looking at the numbers. So I think in education, when we say it's also the quality of education we should be looking at. So in one thing which I think India is very good, but we have not really encashed, is to marry education with this information technology to make education a fun. And in your program, you showed hole in the wall experiment, which is obviously a great success. But we have to really do it as a standard item, not really in few schools and colleges.
Interplay of technology with education with the goal of making it more fun, more accessible, more exciting. I'm going to talk about the shortage of schools, classrooms, and teachers. The resource shortage is well documented, well known. 1.4 million Indian children between the ages of 6 to 11 aren't in school or they've dropped out of school. How do we, Aditya Natraj, essentially just fortify our educational base?
I think there are two separate questions here. One is, what do you do for the last 1.4 million children? Now, yes, that seems like a very large number, but you have to remember that there are 240 million children in school. So as a percentage of that, this is rather small. These are the really sticky children. These are child labor. These are extremely difficult in cotton farms in Andhra. These are in far-flung areas in the Himalayas where the habitations are too small. But really, I would prefer to focus the resources instead. I mean, sort of there's a general consensus now to focus instead on improving the quality for the 240 million who are going to school. And in that, in order to improve it, I think actually very small investments of probably 5% more or 10% more from where we are going will probably cause a 50% improvement if it's really targeted.
I'm going to change gears to talk about agricultural production. Professor Yugendra Alag, in the episode on agricultural production, said, for the Indian farmer to succeed, you must have the Indian farmer linking up very well and strongly with producer groups. Let's take a look.
You have to link up with producers groups. You have to link up with cooperatives. You have to link up with companies which are willing to take a creative stance on this. The point is, we need to build up systems which build up collaboration with the private sector at home, with the private sector abroad, but we need to drive it.
Mr. Kalsi, Professor Alag makes it sound like the whole process starts with the farmer. I could also argue that you need to actually bring the science and technology to the farmer, so the process starts outside of the farmer. Reflect on that.
So it's both. Yes, ultimately it's about the farmer, but we have to bring new technologies and new thinking to the farmer. And we are a country of very small farm holdings. You know, it's unlike the other developed markets where you have hundreds of acres. Our average land holdings are somewhere in the 2 to 3 acres overall for the country. And we've got to think how we apply science and more innovative models to our environment. And the future going forward is going to be around cooperative farming, around contract farming, and I think that's what Dr. Alag is referring to. How do you tie up with contract farming, with the private sector, with the companies? And how do we bring in concepts like precision farming, which generally applies to much larger land holdings, to our environment of small?
I'm going to look at the related aspect of farming in India, and that is, to address the problem of hunger. And hunger from a larger point of view of adequate nutrition as well. What must we be doing right now to make sure that all the sectors are working in tandem to address India's complex nutritional problems?
So if you look at it, we have a lot of protein deficiency in our country. The question is, should we have a protein revolution in our country? Should we bring in new forms of protein? For our poorer people, the dependence is more on lentils, on dal that we eat. How do we bring in soy into the overall scheme of things, which is very high on protein? And then basically reflect back on what are the issues with regard to the diet. So either we have undernutrition, where people are not getting sufficient or more nutritious food, and on the other side is overnutrition, where because of lifestyle we have the other disease. So how do we bring in balanced diet to those people?
Nothing can stop this hunger and so on unless we bring biotechnology. It was said earlier, we don't have enough land, we don't have enough water. But at the end of the cycle, if the product is not accepted by the society, I think it's a huge waste. Yeah. So we should reflect, the Shunya should include also
the societal acceptance angle of it
in totality.
We have time for a few questions from the audience. Each audience member that has a question to raise their hand, go ahead and direct it perhaps to a specific member of the panel. Please go ahead.
So my question is on basis of energy resources. So it will be obviously to you. So determined processes are being taken so that energy reaches all the poor and marginal villages that are dark in India in the next 5 years in a very reasonable rate. And for that, India is using various energy sources like solar energy, wind energy, and hydro energy. So sir, according to you, will it be possible to solve this issue to bring a brighter India in those dark parts of the country?
We have a corollary which was in the telecom revolution for the last 20 years. It was almost unthinkable that we could add 850 mobile phones in 15 or 20 years. And technology allows us to do something like that if you're talking about solar energy or local grids, etc. I don't think we will be able to deliver in 5 years, but I do believe that over the next 20 years or so, we would be able to see a technology-driven and technology-led solutions coming to every part of India.
Okay, we're going to take another question from the audience. We have a mic.
I have a generic question for the panel. India has had a dubious record when it comes to industrial safety. So can innovation change this? What are your thoughts on this?
So let me start saying I think there is a much greater growing awareness around industrial safety. And we see as Indian companies now have global ambitions, I think they see this as a competitive advantage. And it's not staying only at the large global companies, it's percolating down even to the mid and small size companies because they see themselves as a sourcing point for some of the large multinationals. So they want to upgrade their industrial safety standards. And just to share with you, we at DuPont, for us, safety is one of our core values, right, which we implement across the world. And since we have been so strong at safety, we now have a safety program which we go out and help large companies change their safety cultures.
As India moves forward, so too does its need for science, for innovation, and for collaboration amongst the country's brightest minds. We're very fortunate to have had some of them on the panel today. Thank you all very much for being here. This series is as much a celebration of our accomplishments in reaching Shunya as it is a reminder that we must continue to move forward, forging a path towards zero hunger, zero pollution, zero waste, and much more. As India moves forward, so too does its need for science, innovation, and collaboration. Thank you all to those who have tuned in to their second season of DuPont Presents The Power of Shunya Quest for Zero. For more video and information on our progress towards Shunya, be sure to visit us at www.powerofshunya.com and on our Facebook and Twitter pages. This is Manvi Dhillon signing off. Goodbye.